Good morning, dear St. Aldates. The other day, a close friend sent us a beautiful letter with some thoughts around Psalm 84 to encourage us about something we're waiting for. I've always loved this psalm, and of course it's familiar to many of us through the song, How Lovely is Your Dwelling Place. So I've come back to it and been meditating on what it means. I think I've always looked at it fairly superficially and subconsciously thought of the courts of the Lord as a place to escape from having to think things through. So I'm going to take 3 mornings to think about this beautiful psalm and start today with the first 4 verses and the question of our longings. How lovely is your dwelling place, Lord Almighty. My soul yearns, even faints, for the courts of the Lord. My heart and my flesh cry out for the living God. Even the sparrow has found a home, and the swallow a nest for herself, where she may have her young, a place near your altar. Lord Almighty, my King and my God, blessed are those who dwell in your house. They are ever praising you. So the psalm opens with this sense of great longing. My soul yearns, even faints, for the courts of the Lord. The author was probably a Levite who, now barred from the temple, perhaps when Sennacherib was ravaging Judah, a story which is recounted in 2 Kings chapter 18, is longing for the sense of the nearness of God that he'd known in the temple in the past. So in a way, it's about a longing to experience the presence of God. Now, we too are barred from our temple because of lockdown, thanks to the coronavirus pandemic. But of course, the great difference from the exile described in this psalm is that we no longer depend on a physical church building to experience the presence of God. We are the far side of the story of Jesus Christ, who gave up his life that we might have life in his name, who sent us his Holy Spirit to live in us, which means we can experience and enjoy the presence of God at all times. And indeed, many of us are discovering a new depth to our walk with Jesus and our relationship with the Father through these strange weeks. At the same time, of course, we miss being together at church, and several of you have said how much you like seeing us lead services from inside the church. But I think that has more to do with us being together with friends and fellow Christians than the building itself, which is just a container for the life within. And we all miss the hubbub of getting together on Sundays and greeting, hugging each other, catching up. And of course, being reminded that we're part of something that's much bigger than ourselves. So we're nostalgic for the sense of community that being gathered together brings. And my friend wrote about nostalgia that's expressed in this psalm. He wrote this: I believe that nostalgia really means the pain of longing to go home. And there are 2 kinds of intense longing at work in your hearts. Your longing for your true home in the courts of the Lord, a longing that can be fulfilled in this life as well as the next. Your longing, even fainting, to be at home in the heart of God, to be safe, to be cherished, to be reassured. And then he wrote about another longing that we have. And all of you have deep longings in your hearts too. We all do. Things that are between us and God. So we're all invited to be like the swallow and lay our longings on the altar of the Lord. The authorized version is the most explicit here. Yea, the sparrow hath found an house, and the swallow a nest for herself, where she may lay her young, even thine altars. Like the swallow, we can lay our longings for what is very precious to us directly on the altar. For some, it may be a person, for some, a relationship, actual or longed for some, a job. For others, it may be a creative or altruistic aspiration, the desire to make a difference for the good. For many, there is also real anguish over ancient embedded injustices, an anguish that is periodically reignited, as it has been now by the death last week of George Floyd in Minneapolis. And anguish leads to longing. I believe every human being has deep longings, but often they get buried between the exigencies of daily life. And almost always we have to wait for them to be realized, sometimes for a very, very long time, maybe many years. My friend continues, you lay your longing down at the place of sacrifice like Abraham and Isaac, like the father of the prodigal son. You lay it down at the most fruitful and powerful place in the whole universe, the place of sacrifice and new birth, the place of the death of dreams and the resurrection of all hopes, the altar of Calvary itself. We're in a time now when the normal distractions of daily life have been drastically reduced. Many are doing things they haven't had time to do for years: home decorating, clearing out long neglected junk cupboards, redesigning gardens, painting, sewing, mending, and quite a lot of cooking. But people are also thinking a lot, thinking about bigger, deeper, often overwhelming issues. I think many are experiencing a season of lament, or maybe discovering lament. Our longings have to do often with the bigger, the deeper, and the overwhelming. And I wonder when you last paid close attention to your deepest longings. I wonder whether they've become buried beneath an activist life. Or they might have become buried because they're painful to look at. Lockdown is offering us a good opportunity to open up neglected and disorderly cupboards of our minds and hearts for inspection, and perhaps to dare to think about things we may have avoided because they bring painful feelings. And if we do, the place to put these things is at the most fruitful and powerful place in the whole universe, the altar of Calvary, as my friend put it. I'm going to pause here today and end with a poem that was quoted on the Sunday service a couple of Sundays ago. It was written by a Carmelite nun called Jessica Powers, who's no longer alive. Those of you who experience painful feelings in relation to your deepest longings will relate to this. It's called The Garments of God. God sits on a chair of darkness in my soul. He is God alone, supreme in his majesty. I sit at his feet, a child in the dark beside him. My joy is aware of his glance, and my sorrow is tempted to nest on the thought that his face is turned from me. He is clothed in the robes of his mercy, voluminous garments, not velvet or silk and affable to the touch, but fabric strong for a frantic hand to clutch. And I hold to it fast with the fingers of my will. Here is my cry of faith, my deep avowal to the divinity that I am dust. Here is the loud profession of my trust. I will not go abroad to the hills of speech or the hinterlands of music for a crier to walk in my soul where all is still. I have this potent prayer through good or ill. Here in the dark, I clutch the garments of God. Well, we'll come back to these themes next week. For now, how about opening those cupboard doors of the soul and the heart? Have a good day.